Ray kept asking me to represent him, and I kept refusing. I said, I got to be confused. I got to be I got to have it confirmed in my own head that you had no role in the killing of Martin King. And it took 10 years, Alex, and finally in '88, I agreed to represent James O. Ray, and I was his lawyer for the last 10 years of his life. And we failed to get a trial for him, a new trial for him. We struggled. We had a television trial, which was very real and very dynamic.
I've seen that. It's incredible.
Yeah, and the jury took 7 hours to find him not guilty, had a fraction of the evidence that then emerged where people started calling and providing information. I did a first book called Orders to Kill, which developed all the evidence we had and the involvement of
the let's briefly skip ahead now and then go back, but I want to plug your new book now before we forget.
Yeah, well, the second book, and the paperback of it has just come out, is called Act of State, and that brought the evidence up to a trial that we held in 1999. I represented the King family, and we tried a case over 30 days with 70 witnesses. It was a civil action. The family sued one of the people that I uncovered as being a key player in the assassination at the local level, a fellow called Lloyd Jowers. We brought an enormous amount of evidence to bear, and against Jowers, it took that jury 59 minutes to find that, of course, that Ray had nothing to do with the killing, and that responsibility lay 70% with the government of the United States and the government of Tennessee and Memphis, and 30% with Jowers, who was a minor player in the whole thing. But of course, that verdict was and that result and that evidence is buried to the present time. CNN is presently running a documentary. They call it an investigation that they did, which is a total distortion and disinformation, which didn't deal with the evidence in the trial at all. Didn't reveal to the people that we subpoenaed. All the prosecutors tried to get them to appear, and they ran for cover and got the Court of Appeals to give them protection so they didn't have to testify and be embarrassed. But CNN ignores all of that kind of information. And there's an effort, as you know, Alex, in so many areas of public life in America where there's been public wrongdoing, to cover up and to spread for all time on the history books the official story.
And I found Fox News, with its cartoonish ridiculousness, gives CNN then cover because they can act more credible, but in a lot of ways puts out even more dangerous propaganda because it's slicker.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. So anyway,
Well, hold on, sir. We're going to skip this break for stations out there. We're going to continue talking, but I do want to digress with William Pepper because there's so many things I want to bring up. So when we get back to the full stations in 3 minutes, we'll continue. But behind the scenes for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers and Infowars.com audio stream listeners, we're going to keep talking to William Pepper right now. Yeah, William, I'm sorry to break that up. Only some stations and people pick up these behind-the-scenes 3-minute breaks. I just don't want to waste time with you. We'll come back and pick up with where you were at in 3 minutes. But right now, I want to digress because your knowledge is so wide-ranging. Obviously, Bush wants to go into Iran. A lot of people in Congress, Dennis Kucinich, Ron Paul, they say it's green-lighted. I have obviously sources in CIA, as you do, who are saying, oh, it's green-lighted. They're intending to do it in September or October, barring a miracle. Do you think that we're leaning towards that it looks like the globalists are going to do it, the Bush cronies?
I think, I mean, Seymour Hersh, of course, also has his own sources, and he's indicated that it looks like they're going to do it. I think they certainly want to do it. I think that the signs are right there. Even the sending of the Deputy Secretary of State Burns as a kind of a cover to a futile meeting, just so they could be able to say at some point, well, look how far we went. We've tried everything. We even talked about opening a services section in Tehran.
Yeah, it's a perfect replay where they're now saying Iraq had nukes, now you change the last letter, now Iran has nukes, and it's the same fake detente, the same fake diplomacy when we now have all their declassified documents. All of that was false with Iraq. Even when they told Saddam you can leave the country, they had plans to shoot his airplane down.
I think that's absolutely right. I think there's no question that they want to do this. I think the question is only one of timing. They may well wait until after the November election to see if McCain wins. If McCain wins, then they may leave it to him, because it's pretty evident that he's playing with the same deck and he's got the same mindset. If Obama should win, there's more of a question mark there. So I think I would not be surprised to see it launch before Obama took office, and he'd be saddled with the results of that attack on Iran.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Pepper. You've had a long, incredible life, seen so many things. But do you ever feel like you're in a dream? I mean, I know you've seen a lot of things that are like that, but to me, it's like, this is so bizarre, so obvious. It's even more ham-fisted than Hitler's invasions in Europe. It seems like a bad dream. Do you ever feel bewildered?
Well, I feel tremendously distressed by the fact that the most powerful forces in the country really are the mainstream media, corporate media, because they just continually hide and dumb down the American public and distort and influence their mindset to the extent that they do. They are enormously facilitating the demise of this republic and the end of democracy in the republic. There is just no serious mainstream criticism at all that one can look at.
So, in your view, we are definitely entering a long, dark night. Let me get your take on that right now. Here we go. We're going to get back into the murder of MLK and big new developments there. RFK, JFK briefly in the 25 minutes we have left with our guests. But I do want to briefly digress, and we were just talking behind the scenes for Internet listeners and viewers. For the full radio audience, we were talking about, are they going to go into Iran? And he was saying, well, it looks like they're leaning towards that. And he mentioned Cy Hirsch and others with sources. Our sources in Congress say the same thing. Ron Paul, who isn't one to shoot his mouth off, said last week before the House that we're basically going to go into martial law and total tyranny because that's all the preparations he sees. He says colleagues walk around giggling and talking about nuking Iran like children. A mass mental illness, kind of like one of those Bible verses about, giving over to craziness, mass lunacy. Has now taken us, and he was getting into that, finishing up. Do you see any way of changing this and going into this long, dark night that's going to make the 60s look like a Tea Party?
I'm afraid at this point in time, short of a very serious a mass uprising and awareness, I don't. Remember, KBR was given this contract for $385 million over a year, February ago, to build effectively a concentration camp-like facilities in every state of the union, and to refurbish some existing facilities so they could be used. The excuse was that they needed these places for illegal immigrants, which is absolute nonsense. And when you talk about putting them up in Maine and Vermont and places like that, we're talking about illegal immigrants.
Well, Rex 84 in the 80s, the original plan by Oliver North, and Poindexter, as you know, sir, being a scholar, said they would use it as a cover, saying it was for foreigners, but it was really for dissidents.
Yeah, I think there's no question about that, and they are anticipating at some point a roundup, which is an excuse for the declaration of martial law. I think all of the seeds have been sown for martial law in this country. Effectively, surreptitiously, of course, there's no barrier now to virtually doing anything that they want to do, and that is the problem. There is dissent. There are some independent jurists and some independent courts. I think they're going to run roughshod over them. They just need an excuse to declare martial law, and an attack on Iran or some type of false flag operation here in the United States would give them that excuse. So I think we may not be terribly far away from that. If they don't need to go to that extreme, if they can continue to dumb down the population and to minimize any kind of effective dissent, they're going to do that, of course. So just continue.
The reason I think they're going to go with it,
what's making it more and more difficult, Alex, is the decline of the economy, because there's no doubt now we're heading back toward 1929.
That's what I was about to say. That's going to push him, and you just next point you just made it.
Yeah.
So are you saying you see this as an accelerant towards martial law, the economy imploding? Go ahead.
Yes, I think increasingly as middle class people become alienated, as they did during the Vietnam War, by the way, when their children were being drafted. Now the alienation is not a draft, but it's going to be a loss of jobs, inability to feed their families, shortage of basic of goods that they need.
I'll tell you what else is scary. They're taking masses of the Austin police to Israel to train them in anti-terror and literally in how to control the U.S. That means the people. And they're taking every other major city department over there for brainwashing. I mean, and on their own battle plans, basically turning America into fenced-in cities and checkpoints where we're all slaves.